Ambassador Kim Dae walked through the silver doors of his transport ship as it connected to Nexus Station. The station was huge, made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The walls moved with gentle waves of color that were meant to make alien visitors feel calm and safe. Dae was the first human ever to visit this place. He knew that millions of people back on Earth were counting on him to make a good first impression. The door opened with a soft sound, and Dae stepped into the station. The air felt strange and light, even though the computers said it was perfect for breathing. His black leather shoes made loud sounds on the smooth floor. Each step echoed down the long hallway like thunder. He did not know that his footsteps sounded scary to the aliens who lived here. A group of small creatures with big eyes turned to look at him. They had thin wings like butterflies and moved very carefully. These were the Veltai people, and they were some of the most peaceful beings in the galaxy. When they saw Dae walking toward them, their wings started to shake with fear. One of the Veltai moved closer, but she stayed far away from Dae. She was wearing a small metal box that would translate her words into human language. "Hello, Ambassador Kim Dae," she said in a high, singing voice. "We hope your trip from the edge of space was not too hard for you." Her name was Pimere, and she was trying to be polite. But she kept moving backward as she talked. She had read reports about humans and their dangerous home planet. The reports said that humans were very strong and came from a world that tried to kill everything that lived on it. Dae smiled and showed his white teeth. He was happy to meet new friends from space. But when the aliens saw his teeth, they moved away quickly. To them, his teeth looked like the fangs of a hunter. On their peaceful worlds, no animal had teeth like that. Only the scary monsters in their old stories had teeth for cutting meat. "Thank you for welcoming me here," Dae said in a warm voice. "I am very excited to represent my people. We have waited a long time to join the galaxy and make friends with everyone." He did not notice that his voice was too loud. On Earth, humans had to speak loudly to hear each other over wind and storms. But here in the quiet station, his voice boomed like thunder. Small aliens near him covered their ears and ran away. Pimere started to walk toward the meeting hall, and Dae followed her. As they moved through the station, other aliens stopped what they were doing to stare at him. They whispered to each other in their own languages, but Dae could guess what they were saying. A group of tall, thin aliens with green skin watched him walk by. They had heard stories about Earth and could not believe them. They whispered about a planet where the ground shook and split open, where water fell from the sky so hard it could hurt you, and where the air itself could catch fire during storms. Some small, round aliens with soft fur rolled away from him as fast as they could. They had been told that humans came from a world with creatures called lions and tigers and bears, animals that hunted other animals for food. The idea of such violence made them sick to their stomachs. "Is it true," one alien whispered to another, "that his planet has mountains that explode with liquid fire?" "Yes," the other replied, "and frozen water that falls from the sky and covers everything. How can anything live in such a terrible place?" Dae walked behind Pimere, not knowing that everyone was afraid of him. He looked around at the beautiful station with wonder. The walls were covered with art from hundreds of different worlds. There were plants that sang soft music and crystals that changed colors like rainbows. Everything was designed to be gentle and peaceful. They passed a garden where alien children were playing. The children had never seen a human before, and they stopped their games to stare. One little alien, who looked like a small blue horse, started to cry when she saw Dae. Her mother quickly picked her up and carried her away. "I am sorry," Pimere said, looking embarrassed. "The young ones are not used to beings from dangerous worlds." "Dangerous worlds?" Dae asked, confused. He thought Earth was a beautiful place with oceans and forests and cities full of art and music. Pimere did not know how to explain. To her people, Earth sounded like a nightmare. A world where the weather could kill you, where huge animals with sharp teeth hunted for food, where the ground could shake so hard that buildings fell down. She could not understand how any intelligent life could survive in such a place, much less build cities and art and music. They walked past more groups of aliens, and Dae noticed that they all moved away when they saw him coming. Some pointed at his hands, which looked very strong compared to their thin fingers. Others stared at his eyes, which looked forward like a hunter's eyes instead of to the sides like prey animals. "The meeting hall is just ahead," Pimere said, flying a little faster now. She wanted to get the human to his assigned seat as quickly as possible. The sooner he was contained in the special area built for dangerous species, the safer everyone would feel. As they got closer to the great meeting hall, Dae could hear the sounds of thousands of alien voices talking together. Soon he would meet the leaders of the galaxy and begin the most important conversation in human history. He just hoped he would not accidentally scare anyone else on the way. The big meeting room was the most amazing thing Kim Dae had ever seen. The ceiling was like a giant window that showed the colorful space clouds outside. Stars twinkled and moved slowly across the dome above his head. Thousands of different alien creatures filled the huge room. Some floated in the air, some hung from the ceiling, and others stood on special platforms made just for their kind. There were aliens that looked like walking trees with golden leaves. Others were like big jellyfish that glowed with soft light. Some had many arms and legs, while others had no arms at all. Each group had their own special area with the right temperature, air, and gravity for their bodies. Pimere led Day to a thick metal platform at the back of the room. It was far away from all the other delegates and had strong walls around it. A sign in many languages said Danger, Deathworlder Containment Area. This is your special place, Pimere said, trying to sound happy about it. It is very safe and strong. We built it just for species from difficult planets. Day looked around at the metal walls and thick glass windows. It felt more like a cage than a special honor. But he did not want to complain on his first day. He smiled and said, "Thank you. It looks very nice." As he walked toward his seat, something beautiful caught his eye. In the center of the room was a tall glass case with a crystal inside. The crystal was the most beautiful thing Day had ever seen. It was clear like water but had colors that moved inside it like living rainbows. Soft light surrounded it, making it float in the air. "That is the heart of peace," Pimere whispered. "It is from the homeworld of the Chileth people. It is 10,000 years old and very precious. It has been in every peace treaty in the galaxy's history." Day stared at the crystal with respect. He knew he was looking at something more valuable than all the gold on Earth. The crystal seemed to sing without making any sound. It made him feel calm and happy just to look at it. Above the crystal, a small robot was flying around, checking the lights and air systems. The robot was no bigger than Day's hand, with tiny wings that buzzed like a bee. It was painted bright blue and had friendly eyes that blinked as it worked. But something was wrong. The little robot started to shake and wobble in the air. Sparks came out of its back, and it made a sad beeping sound. The robot's wings were not working right, and it began to fall toward the precious crystal. Day watched in horror as the robot tumbled through the air. If it hit the crystal, it would break into a million pieces. 10,000 years of galactic history would be destroyed. The peace treaty that brought all these species together would be ruined. All around the room, other aliens saw what was happening. But they were too far away to help. Their bodies were too weak and too slow to catch the falling robot. They could only watch and hope that nothing bad would happen. But Day was different. His body had been made strong by millions of years of life on a dangerous planet. His eyes could see fast movements better than any alien in the room. His muscles could move quicker than lightning when he needed them to. Without thinking, Day jumped forward and reached up with his right hand. His reflexes were so fast that the other aliens could barely see him move. In one smooth motion, he caught the falling robot just before it hit the crystal. The robot was safe. The crystal was safe. Day smiled, feeling proud that he had saved such an important treasure. But then he felt something wrong in his hand. The robot was not moving anymore. He looked down and saw that his fingers had crushed the little machine like it was made of soft clay. Oil and broken parts leaked between his fingers. Bright sparks shot out and burned his skin, but he barely felt them. The entire room became silent. Every alien stared at Day with wide, frightened eyes. He had just destroyed a robot with his bare hand without even trying. To them, it looked like he had crushed it on purpose. Suddenly, loud alarms started ringing throughout the station. Red lights flashed on and off, making everything look scary. A computer voice began to speak in a cold, mechanical tone. "Warning. Security breach in Sector 7. Hostile entity detected. All delegates must evacuate immediately. Initiating emergency containment protocols." Day stood still, holding the broken pieces of the robot. He did not understand what was happening. All around him, aliens were screaming and running away. Some flew toward the exits, others rolled or crawled as fast as they could. The peaceful meeting had turned into chaos in just a few seconds. "I was just trying to help," Day said quietly, but his voice was lost in all the noise. More alarms joined the first ones. Emergency doors began to close. Security robots appeared from hidden panels in the walls, their weapons pointed at Day. The beautiful meeting hall had become a battlefield, and Day was the enemy. He looked down at his hands, stained with oil and metal pieces. He had wanted to save something precious and make friends with the galaxy. Instead, he had proven that humans were too dangerous to be trusted. The crushed robot in his palm was evidence that Earth's people were exactly what everyone feared they would be. Dozens of security robots flew into the meeting room like angry metal birds. They were shiny and smooth, about the size of a small car, and they moved through the air without making any sound. These robots were the best that the galaxy could make. They had special weapons that could stop the most dangerous criminals in space. The robots carried energy guns that could make anyone fall asleep instantly. They also had foam sprayers that could trap enemies and stuff stronger than steel cables. For thousands of years, these security robots had never failed to stop a threat. Kim Day looked up at the flying robots and felt scared. He had never seen so many weapons pointed at him before. But he did not want to hurt anyone or cause more trouble. He slowly raised both hands above his head to show that he was not dangerous. "Please stay calm," Day shouted, trying to make the aliens understand that he was friendly. "I do not want to fight anyone." But Day's voice was much too loud for the quiet meeting room. On Earth, people had to speak loudly to hear each other during storms and wind. In space, everything was quiet and peaceful. When Day spoke in his normal voice, it sounded like thunder to the sensitive alien ears. The sound was so loud and scary that half of the aliens in the room ran away screaming. A group of bird-like creatures called the Kreelan flew around the room in circles, crashing into walls and each other. They were so frightened that they forgot how to fly properly. Near the crystal display, some aliens that looked like living diamonds started to make high-pitched sounds. They were so upset that their bodies began to shake and crack. Their crying sounds were so loud that they broke several glass displays around the room. The security robots decided that Day was too dangerous to talk to. Their computer brains told them to stop him before he hurt anyone else. Blue beams of energy shot out from their weapons and hit Day right in the chest. These energy beams were designed to knock out any living creature instantly. They were strong enough to stop a charging space elephant or put a giant war fish to sleep. But when the beams hit Day, he just blinked and looked confused. "That felt strange," Day said, looking down at his jacket. The energy beam had burned a small black mark on his clothes, but he was still standing and awake. It was like being touched by a tiny lightning bolt. In the security command room, Chief Talmos watched everything on his computer screens. Talmos looked like a giant pink jellyfish with big eyes and many tentacles. His species had never fought a war or even had an argument. They were so peaceful that the strongest thing they ever did was push each other during mating season. Talmos could not believe what he was seeing. The human had just survived their most powerful weapon like it was nothing. In all of galactic history, no creature had ever walked away from a pacification beam. Even the legendary Velkith battle beasts, who were as big as tanks and twice as mean, fell down unconscious when hit by these weapons. "Use the foam," Talmos shouted into his communication device. His voice was shaking with fear. "Cover him with containment foam right now." The security robots shot clouds of white foam at Day from every direction. The foam expanded quickly, growing bigger and bigger until it covered him like a small mountain. This foam was made from the strongest materials in the galaxy. Once it hardened, it was supposed to be stronger than the cables that held spaceships together. For a moment, the room was quiet. The foam had covered Day completely, and no one could see him anymore. Some of the remaining aliens began to feel safe again. The dangerous human was trapped, and they could all go home. But then the foam started to crack. Small pieces fell to the floor, then bigger pieces. Day pushed his arms out, breaking through the foam like it was soft bread. He coughed a few times and brushed the white stuff off his shoulders. "I think there has been a mistake," Day said, stepping out of the broken foam. He looked straight ahead at the security robots, trying to show them that he wanted to talk and solve this problem. But to the aliens, Day's direct stare looked like the way a hungry lion looks at a deer. On their safe planets, animals only looked directly at other creatures when they were about to attack and eat them. Day's upright posture and forward-facing walk made him look like the most dangerous predator they had ever seen. More alarms started ringing throughout the space station. Emergency walls began to slide down from the ceiling, cutting the station into smaller sections. The computer system was trying to trap Day in one area so he could not hurt anyone else. Talmos stared at his screens in complete horror. Nothing was working. Their best weapons, their strongest foam, their smartest computers, nothing could stop this one human. He began to wonder if the stories about Earth were actually true. Maybe humans really did come from a world so dangerous that they were impossible to defeat. In the meeting room, Day stood surrounded by broken foam, burned by energy beams, and watched by dozens of armed robots. He had only wanted to save a beautiful crystal and make friends with the galaxy. Instead, he had become the scariest thing that anyone here had ever seen. Chief Talmos slowly entered the big meeting room with his team of guards behind him. He was wearing his strongest protective suit and carrying the most powerful weapons the space station had. He expected to see broken walls, injured aliens, and maybe even dead bodies scattered everywhere. Instead, he found something very strange. Kim Dae was sitting quietly on the floor in the middle of all the mess. Around him were pieces of broken security robots, piles of white foam, and scorch marks from energy weapons. But Dae himself looked calm and peaceful. Dae was carefully picking small pieces of metal off his clothes and putting them in a neat pile beside him. While he worked, he was making soft musical sounds with his voice. To the aliens, it sounded like a scary war song or maybe a death chant. But it was actually a happy song that Dae's grandmother had taught him when he was a little boy. Ambassador Kim Dae, Talmos said very carefully. His voice was shaking, and he kept his distance. All the lights on his protective suit were glowing bright blue to show that his shields were at maximum power. Please tell us what you want to do. Dae looked up with a confused expression on his face. He did not understand why everyone was so afraid. I was just trying to stop that little robot from hitting the beautiful crystal, he said. Did I do something wrong? I was only trying to help. The translation computers spread Dae's words to all the aliens who were still in the room. Many of them whispered to each other in surprise. They had expected the human to make threats or demands. Instead, he seemed worried that he had been rude. Dr. Nimala walked closer to Dae, but her tentacles were shaking with fear. She was the smartest scientist in the galaxy and knew more about alien biology than anyone else. She held a small computer that could scan living creatures and tell her about their bodies. The readings are amazing, she whispered to Talmos, looking at her computer screen. His bones are 15 times stronger than ours. His muscles have metal fibers woven into them like cables. His brain processes information so fast that it is almost impossible to measure. Dr. Nimala had spent years studying the reports about Earth. She knew it was a planet that tried to kill everything that lived on it. The gravity was so strong that most aliens would be crushed flat just by standing on the ground. The air was so thick and harsh that it could eat through spaceship metal. The weather included storms bigger than entire planets and temperatures that could freeze or burn anything in seconds. But look at him, Talmos said, pointing at Dae. He is not trying to hurt anyone. He is not making threatening gestures. He is not trying to claim territory or show that he is the strongest. Dr. Nimala studied Dae more carefully. Even though he was surrounded by armed guards and had just broken through their best security systems, he was sitting still and waiting patiently. His hands were empty and relaxed. His body language showed that he was not planning to attack anyone. I think I understand now, Dr. Nimala said with wonder in her voice. He is not trying to scare us. This is what he looks like when he is being gentle and careful. This is what he looks like when he is holding back his real strength. The other aliens in the room began to realize what Dr. Nimala meant. They had been looking at Dae's actions all wrong. When he caught the robot, he had not been trying to show off his power. He had been trying to save something precious. When he broke through their foam and energy weapons, he had not been attacking them. He had been confused and trying to explain that there was a mistake. A being who could crush their strongest robots with his bare hands was choosing to sit quietly on the floor. A creature who could probably tear apart their entire space station was patiently waiting for them to understand that he wanted to be friends. Think about it, Dr. Nimala explained to the other delegates. If humans are this strong when they are being careful and gentle, imagine what they must have survived on their home planet. They did not become this powerful by choice. They became this powerful because they had to, or they would have died. Talmos began to understand. Earth was not just a dangerous planet. It was a world so deadly that only the strongest and smartest creatures could survive there. But those same creatures had also learned to be kind and helpful to each other, because working together was the only way to stay alive. Dae smiled at the aliens around him, but he was careful to keep his mouth closed so they would not see his teeth. He had noticed that his teeth scared them earlier. I really am happy to be here, he said softly. I hope we can all be friends and help each other. Dr. Nimala felt tears in her eyes as she realized the truth. The humans were not monsters or killers. They were survivors who had learned to be gentle despite having the power to destroy everything around them. They had come to the galaxy not to conquer or threaten, but to make friends and share what they had learned about surviving in a dangerous universe. We have been looking at this all wrong, she whispered to Talmos. They are not dangerous to us. They are the answer to our problems. 3 hours later, the red emergency lights had stopped flashing and the loud alarms were finally quiet. The big meeting room looked much different now. Kim Dae was sitting in a very strong metal chair that had been built specially for him. Around him sat dozens of alien scientists, diplomats, and military officers. They all had notebooks and computers, writing down everything Day said. High Chancellor Qinth was the leader of the Galactic Council. She looked like a tall tower made of living crystal that changed colors when she talked. Right now, her crystal body was flashing with nervous yellow and orange lights. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," she said, her voice sounding like wind chimes. "Your planet has animals called bears that weigh as much as 600 kilograms and can run 60 kilometers per hour." Day smiled and nodded. "Oh yes, but those are the smaller bears. Polar bears are much bigger and stronger. And we have ocean predators too, great white sharks with teeth like knives, killer whales that hunt in groups, and giant squids with tentacles longer than school buses. Long ago, we even had dinosaurs that were over 30 meters long." The aliens around the table looked at each other with fear and amazement. The most dangerous creature in their part of the galaxy was a slow-moving plant that ate small insects. They could escape from it simply by walking away at a normal pace. Dr. Nimala, the tentacled scientist, was reading from her research files. "According to our data, humans did not just live near these dangerous animals. They competed with them for food and territory. They survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years, volcanic explosions that covered entire continents, rocks from space that hit their planet, and floods that covered all the land." "Well," Day said modestly, "that was our ancestors who did all that. We modern humans are probably much weaker than they were. We have supermarkets and restaurants now, so we do not have to hunt wild animals for food." The crystal body of High Chancellor Qinth suddenly started glowing brighter with excitement. She had just remembered something very important. "Ambassador Day, do you know about the Void Swarm?" Day's face became serious as he nodded. "Yes, I read about them in the intelligence reports before I came here. They are space creatures that travel in huge groups and attack your colonies on the edge of the galaxy. Your military forces cannot find a way to stop them." Admiral Tekaloen was the highest-ranking military officer in the Galactic Council. He looked like a large crab with blue shell and many eyes. His voice was full of fear and frustration as he spoke. "They are impossible to defeat," he whispered. "Our strongest weapons barely hurt them. They learn from every attack we make and become stronger. They have destroyed 17 star systems already, and we cannot slow them down." Day looked at the battle reports and video recordings that the Admiral showed him. The Void Swarm creatures were about the size of cars, with hard black shells and many sharp legs. They moved through space in groups of millions, eating everything they found. But today, they looked very familiar. He had seen similar patterns of behavior many times on Earth. The way they moved together, the way they reproduced, the way they attacked, it all reminded him of creatures he knew well. "Have you tried using fire?" Day asked simply. The entire room became completely silent. All the aliens stared at him with confusion. "Fire?" Admiral Teklan repeated, as if he had never heard the word before. "Or loud noises?" Day continued. "On Earth, we have been dealing with swarm creatures for millions of years. We call them different names depending on the season: locusts, army ants, killer bees. But they all behave in very similar ways." Dr. Nimala's tentacles were shaking with excitement. "Are you saying that these creatures that have destroyed 17 star systems are similar to insects on your planet?" "Well, they are obviously much bigger," Day admitted. "But their behavior patterns are almost exactly the same. Based on what I see here, I would say they are probably a Class 3 threat by Earth standards." "Class 3? Squeaked a small, furry alien in the corner. "What would be a Class 10 threat on your world?" Day thought for a moment, trying to think of something really dangerous. Maybe a bad flu season that spreads quickly. Or traffic jams during rush hour in a big city. The Galactic Council members stared at Day in complete shock. They had spent decades reorganizing their entire civilization around the fear of the Void Swarm. They had lost sleep, built huge armies, and spent enormous amounts of money trying to find a solution. And this human was talking about them the way they might discuss a minor pest problem. High Chancellor Qinth's crystal form began pulsing with bright, hopeful colors for the first time in years. "Ambassador Day, on behalf of the entire Galactic Council, I would like to formally invite humanity to join our alliance. We believe that your unique experience and perspective could help us solve our greatest crisis." Day's face lit up with a genuine smile. "We would be honored to help. Earth has always believed that the best way to survive is to work together and help each other." As the meeting came to an end, Dr. Nimala stayed behind to ask one more question. "Ambassador, there is something I must know. If humans are so powerful and your world is so dangerous, Why are you so kind and gentle? Day considered her question carefully. Maybe it is because we know what it feels like to be afraid and helpless. Every species on Earth has almost gone extinct at least once. We learned that the only way to survive is to take care of each other. The strongest human is not the one who can fight the best. The strongest human is the one who helps others survive.